Welcome to Magical Bedtime Tales. Tonight we'll take you on a gentle journey through the story of Rapunzel. Once upon a time, in a quiet little village wrapped in fog and wildflowers, there lived a kind-hearted couple who had long dreamed of becoming parents. They lived in a small stone cottage with ivy curling along the windows, and each night they lit a candle and whispered wishes into the wind, hoping the stars would answer. Behind their cottage was a tall stone wall. Beyond it, hidden from the world, lay a mysterious garden overflowing with herbs, blossoms, and deep green vines. It belonged to a powerful sorceress named Mother Gothel, a woman who rarely showed herself, but whose presence was always felt. Birds flew around the garden but never landed. Even the wind changed direction when it passed the wall. One day, the wife stood by the window, pale and tired, her hands resting on her growing belly. After many seasons of longing, her wish had finally come true. She was going to have a child. But as the days passed, a strange craving grew inside her heart. She stared at the lush garden beyond the wall and said to her husband, "There's a plant in that garden with wide green leaves and a sweet scent. I believe it's called Rapunzel. I dream about its taste. If I don't have it, I feel I may wither like a forgotten flower." Her husband, who loved her dearly, hesitated. "But that garden is forbidden. It belongs to the sorceress," he said. She turned to him with eyes full of longing. "Just a handful for our child." That night, under the silver light of the moon, the husband climbed over the high wall. The garden shimmered as if touched by magic. He moved quickly, picking a small bundle of Rapunzel leaves and escaping back to their cottage. The next day, the wife tasted the Rapunzel and her eyes lit up with joy. But the next evening, she whispered, "Just once more, a little more." And so, once again, the husband crept into the garden, thinking only of the woman he loved. But this time, Mother Gothel was waiting. She stepped from behind the shadows, her cloak like a storm cloud, her eyes sharp as icicles. "How dare you steal from me?" she hissed. The man dropped the leaves, trembling. "Please, my wife is with child. She craved it. I meant no harm." The sorceress stared at him, silent for a long moment. Then she spoke, her voice low and smooth. "You may keep what you have taken, but when your child is born, she will be mine." Before he could speak, she vanished into the shadows, her curse echoing through the wind. Months passed. The couple held each other close, hoping the sorceress would forget, but magic never forgets. When the baby was born, the sun rose golden and soft across the sky. The little girl had hair like spun sunlight and eyes as clear as spring water. They named her Rapunzel, after the plant that had brought her into the world. But before the sun had fully risen, Mother Gothel appeared at their door. Without a word, she took the baby in her arms and vanished into the forest. The grieving parents never saw her again. Far away, in the heart of the enchanted woods, stood a tall, hidden tower with no doors and no stairs, only one narrow window at the very top. And that is where Rapunzel grew. She lived high above the trees, where birds circled and clouds danced. Mother Gothel visited often, bringing food and brushing her hair, which had grown long, so long it brushed the floor in golden waves. When she arrived, the sorceress would call from below, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair, so I may climb the golden stair." And Rapunzel would lower her braid like a rope, pulling Mother Gothel up. Years passed like falling petals. Rapunzel grew into a gentle, curious girl with a voice that sounded like lullabies drifting through the air. She sang songs to the stars and dreamed of the world beyond the tower. She would ask, "Mother Gothel, what lies beyond the forest? Are there villages, rivers, music?" But the sorceress always frowned. "The world is cruel, child. It will never love you as I do. Stay here where you are safe." And so Rapunzel sang to the sky, her song soft and full of longing. One day, as her voice danced through the air like a silver ribbon, a young prince rode through the forest on his white horse. He paused beneath the tower, enchanted by the voice above. He could not see who sang, but his heart felt as if it had known that song forever. He returned the next day, and the next, hiding in the trees, listening. Then one evening, he saw Mother Gothel arrive. He heard her call, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." And he watched in awe as a golden braid tumbled down from the window, lifting the cloaked woman up. The prince waited until twilight. When the tower stood quiet under the pale moon, he stepped closer and whispered the same words, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." And to his surprise, the braid came tumbling down once more. The braid slid down like golden silk, brushing the tower's outer wall as it fell. Below, the young prince held his breath. His heart beat like a drum as he gripped the thick strands, unsure what he would find at the top. With care and quiet strength, he climbed up past the whispering leaves, past the forest's sighs, and into the sky itself. When he reached the open window, he gently lifted himself over the sill and landed softly on the wooden floor inside. There, standing with wide eyes and her hands pressed to her heart, was the girl whose voice had lured him through the trees, Rapunzel. Her golden hair glowed in the dim candlelight, and her eyes, blue and full of wonder, locked with his. "You're not Mother Gothel," she whispered. The prince, catching his breath, bowed. "No. I'm sorry to frighten you. I heard your voice in the forest. I didn't know someone could sing like that. I had to see who it was." Rapunzel stepped back cautiously. "You climbed my hair?" He smiled gently. "Only after I saw someone else do it. I didn't mean to intrude, truly." Something in his eyes, kind, curious, and unsure, made her heart soften. No one had ever climbed into her world before. No one had ever dared. "I've never met anyone," she said softly, "not like you." And from that moment, something delicate began to bloom between them. The prince returned the next evening, and the one after that. Each time he whispered her name from below and gently climbed her golden braid. And each time they sat by the window, talking under the stars. He brought stories from the world of rivers that laughed through mountains, of festivals and lanterns floating like dreams, of music and dancing and children playing in fields. Rapunzel listened with wide eyes, her voice full of longing. "I wish I could see it all. I wish I could feel the wind from the sea." The prince took her hand. "Then come with me. Let me take you from this tower. Let me show you the world." Her fingers curled around his. She wanted to say yes. She wanted to follow him that very moment, but her heart hesitated. "I've only ever known this tower," she whispered, "and Mother Gothel. She says the world is cruel." He looked into her eyes. "The world is many things, but cruel? Not always. Not when there's kindness and someone by your side." Rapunzel smiled, shy, unsure but hopeful. And so their secret meetings continued. Each night she would pull up her braid and wait by the window, her heart racing as the sun sank behind the trees. And each night the prince came with laughter and warmth and dreams wrapped in his voice. But secrets, like shadows, always find a way to grow. One morning, while brushing Rapunzel's long, gleaming hair, Mother Gothel paused. "You're quieter today," she said. "Your cheeks are pink. Is something changing?" Rapunzel, startled, tried to smile. "It's nothing, just the sun." But the sorceress narrowed her eyes. That night, she waited behind the trees and watched. She saw the prince arrive. She heard his voice, and her heart burned with fury. "How dare she hissed. "How dare he?" The next day, Mother Gothel appeared earlier than usual. Her voice was sweet as syrup, her steps calm, but her eyes were cold. She asked Rapunzel to sit. She brushed her hair longer than usual. Then, without warning, she pulled out a pair of silver scissors and snipped. The golden braid fell to the floor in a shimmering heap. Rapunzel gasped. Why would you do this?" "You have betrayed me," the sorceress snarled. "After all I have given you, you let a stranger into your heart." Tears welled in Rapunzel's eyes. "But I loved him, and he was kind." Mother Gothel's voice rose like a storm. Love is weakness." With a flick of her fingers, she cast a spell that carried Rapunzel far, far away to a distant desert where no forest or prince could find her. She left Rapunzel with nothing but a bag of food and a hollow ache in her heart. And as the desert wind howled, Rapunzel sank to the ground, her hands on her belly, for now she knew something else. She was no longer alone. A new life was growing within her, the prince's child. Back at the tower, Mother Gothel waited. That night, when the prince returned and whispered, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair," she dropped the cut braid over the edge. He climbed, heart full of joy, until he reached the top. But Rapunzel was not there. Mother Gothel was. With a cruel smile, she stepped forward. "She's gone, and you shall never see her again." Before he could speak, she pushed him from the window. The prince fell down through the branches and thorns. When he landed, his eyes were filled with pain and darkness. The thorns had stolen his sight. Blinded and broken, he crawled away from the tower, calling her name. "Rapunzel! Rapunzel!" But the forest gave no answer. The forest stood still after the prince's cries faded into silence. Leaves rustled softly, but there were no voices, no footsteps, only the sound of his breath and the wind curling through the trees. Blind and heartbroken, the prince wandered through the woods, guided by memory and the echo of Rapunzel's song that still lived in his soul. Day after day, he walked with no direction, his hands brushing tree trunks, his voice calling her name into the breeze. Sometimes he wept. Sometimes he dreamed. He ate what the forest offered: wild berries, cool spring water, and slept beneath stars that shimmered like the light in Rapunzel's eyes. Far away, across deserts of silence and fields of wind, Rapunzel lived in exile. The land where she had been banished was vast and golden, scattered with stones and flowering thistles. She built herself a small shelter from fallen branches and sang to the sky each night, hoping the winds would carry her voice back to the prince. In her arms, she cradled two newborn twins, a boy and a girl, their hair soft like corn silk, their eyes gentle and curious. They were her hope, her courage, and her reason to smile again. She taught them to laugh with the morning birds and hum with the breeze. She wove stories into the stars at night and braided their hair with wild daisies. Though the world around her was lonely, her heart was not, for her love lived in their eyes. But sometimes, when the desert turned cold and the winds howled louder than her voice, she would close her eyes and whisper, "Where are you, my prince?" Meanwhile, the prince wandered for years through forests, across rivers, into hills and hidden valleys. Though he could no longer see the world, he listened to it. He listened for her voice. And one evening, as twilight kissed the sky and the birds flew low, he heard a song, faint and soft, like a lullaby drifting on the wind. A song he had heard once, long ago, sung by a girl in a tower. "Rapunzel?" he whispered. He followed the sound, stumbling through the grasses, heart pounding. His hands trembled, his breath caught. And then he heard it again, clearer this time. Not just a song, but laughter, children's laughter, and then footsteps. "Rapunzel!" he cried out. There was silence, then a gasp, a rush of running feet. And suddenly, arms around him, she was there. Rapunzel with her golden hair now braided and worn from the wind. Rapunzel with tears streaming down her cheeks, her hands on his face, her breath shaking. "My love," she whispered, "it's really you." "I found you," he said, though he could not see her. "I heard your voice. I followed it through the world." She knelt before him, cradling his face, and her tears, warm, shining, and full of love, fell onto his closed eyes. And then, something miraculous happened. A shimmer, a soft glow, and then a flicker of light. The prince blinked, once, then again. Colors returned to him, blurred, then brighter, then clear, the sky, the grass, her face. I can see you," he whispered. "Your eyes, your smile." Rapunzel laughed through her tears, pressing her forehead to his. "We found each other." Behind her, two small children peeked out from the bushes, wide-eyed, curious. The prince turned to them slowly, wonder blooming in his gaze. "Are they?" Rapunzel nodded. "Ours. A piece of you. A piece of me born from love." He reached out and the children came to him without fear, wrapping their little hands around his fingers. It was quiet for a while. No spells, no towers, no sorceress. Just the sound of 4 heartbeats in the golden light of dusk. And in that stillness, love wove itself back around them, not in grand spells, but in touches, laughter, and stories yet to be lived. In time, they returned to the prince's kingdom. The palace gates opened wide, and the people rejoiced to see their prince home, at last not alone, but with his beloved and their children. They married in a celebration beneath the stars. Lanterns floated into the sky like dreams taking flight. Music played softly through the hills. And Rapunzel, once a girl locked away in a tower, now danced freely under the moon, her braid unbound, her heart full. She and the prince ruled with kindness and grace. Their story of towers and tears, of love lost and found, was told across the kingdom, whispered to children as they drifted to sleep. And each night from a high window in the castle, a lullaby would rise once more. "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair, not for a climb, but for the wind carry, so her voice could reach every child dreaming of love, of freedom, and of the magic that lives in every story." Thank you for listening to Magical Bedtime Tales. May your dreams be full of wonder. Good night.